Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to the next session now on our agenda. This session will be the ICE Roundtable Workshop Series, including presentations of the 2 ICE research grant schemes from 2021, the research reports. It's my pleasure to introduce our first presentation today, Bastiaan Bernasco, from a senior lecturer and researcher from Saxion University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. In Bastiaan's role within Saxion Hospitality Business School, she's a senior lecturer and coordinator for Good Food and Honours Programme, Liberal Arts and Sciences and Global Citizenship, lecturer of academic writing, business models and graduation project coach, theme lecturer for hospitality ethics and technology, Saxion Green Office Ambassador, a board member of 2 projects aiming to establish regional sustainable food systems, and a member of the organising committee of the summer school for the Knowledge Building Institute in 2021. So, Bastiaan Bernasco, thank you very much, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thanks very much. I'm just looking at my big screen now, so that everybody sees me, but I have 2 screens here. So if I look the other way, then I'm not ignoring you, but I'm looking at my own presentation. Okay. Thanks very much for this nice introduction. Welcome everyone to my presentation. I'm very pleased to be able to meet you here virtually. I had been looking forward to coming over to Derby because that's my home ground. I used to live there for a year in Nottingham, but unfortunately our COVID restrictions didn't allow us to visit Derby. So, but I'm pleased to be able to do it this way. So the topic is about sustainable food systems, and my research idea was to research sustainable food systems in the curricula of the ICE member institutes. I wanted to know whether we address and enable sustainable food systems in our curricula. I was just curious to know what everybody was doing with this topic. I think we've said enough about me. I'm the researcher. I work for Saxion University of Applied Sciences. And the link I have with the topic is that I've been teaching good food for 8 years, and we've been teaching it in a systemic way. So we want to address the whole food system with students. We allow students to really discover themselves what contribution they might make to the global food system. And because that's a very big topic and very complex, we make it very tangible for students, and we make it small, and we say, okay, what are the topics you want to be working on, and what kind of projects would you like to be involved in? Because we think that hospitality students especially are very well equipped to organize, to take the organizing role in sustainable food systems. So whether it's as a purchaser of food, or whether it's as an organizer of local food systems, we think our hospitality students are very well equipped to play a good part in this very dominant system change at the moment. So yeah, the theory about sustainable food systems is there. It's starting to, more and more people starting to write about it, from the green sector, from the farming sector, as well as a little bit from the hospitality sector, although I think hospitality can take a much more active part also in the research perhaps. But the big organizations, United Nations, agriculture organizations, and other, and of course the Sustainable Development Goals, also point in the direction that sustainable consumption and production practices are very important. And if we want to move towards sustainable production, we require complex skill sets, which means that we need to work in interdisciplinary systems, and our students need to start working with other people in the food system. So we need to restructure our food system in line with the natural limits, social stability, and personal growth. And we need to ensure environmental, health, and economic benefits. So it's not just about business, it's also about environmental benefits, health benefits for actors across the world. It's about healthy diets, and it's about innovative financing. And I would add, it's also about innovative organization of the food supply chain. I found this model, which is the policy model of the United Nations, which is called the Enabling Framework for Sustainable Food Systems. It's actually been written with farmers as the starting point. So it's been written to allow farmers to set up or to join sustainable food systems. And of course, this is all about responsible consumption and production, which is also number 12 in the Sustainable Development Goal. Can I ask you, does everybody follow me? Can you hear me? Is everything going smoothly? Yes.
Well, it's quite small on the screen here. I wonder if you could just switch off on your presentation, switch off the preview at the side so that your slide goes, so we don't see the next slide, but we see just the slide that you're concentrating on.
So let's start at the policy model, which I thought was relevant for the research. It's the Enabling Framework for Sustainable Food Systems. It's a little bit, it's made from the perspective of the farmer, but it's relevant for all actors in the food system. And it also ties in with the goal 12, which is responsible consumption, production, and in this case of food. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the model, we see actions to enable sustainable food systems. And I think we can also see this as a call to hospitality food specialists. It's about knowing your consumers, keeping them engaged, know your markets, find the right price, share and co-create knowledge, manage and organize access to sustainable inputs, which is here is meant as inputs to farm the land, basically, so fertilizer, that kind of thing. You should connect with smart logistics. If you set up a sustainable food system, you have to basically do everything again. If you want to change this food system into a sustainable food system, you have to consider sustainable packaging. You have to determine guarantees for sustainability. Of course, we have already a lot of seals like fair trade or organic seals, but there have to be guarantees for sustainability. You have to find innovative finance models because I don't know about you guys, but in the Netherlands we have banks financing the industrial intensive cattle farming system, and they are not very likely to move over to, for example, organic farming or sustainable small system farming. So you have to find innovative finance. You have to formalize your collaboration with the people in your supply chain. And you have to, of course, bring in partners and ambassadors. Now, as you can see, these are very complex activities in which people have to cooperate and collaborate. Some of these activities are very familiar to business students, but some of the activities will also be new. But I still think that our hospitality students can play a role in any or more of these activities. So next one, please. In Europe, we have the Farm to Fork strategy, which is relevant from 2020 onwards. And we all know that that farming accounts, or the food system accounts for nearly 1/3 of the global greenhouse gas emissions. And with the climate crisis at hand, of course, this is the unique opportunity to use farming systems and food systems to mitigate the effects of climate change. So we have to work on sustainable food production, sustainable food processing and distribution, sustainable food consumption, and we have to work on food loss and waste prevention. And in fact, reducing food waste is the number one or a very important thing you can do to actually decrease carbon footprint. And again, these are activities which are relevant and familiar, I think, to our hospitality and tourism students. Next slide, please. I also get inspiration from the international global slow food movement, which is a grassroots organization. And I used to go to the Terra Madre or meetings, which are held in Turin, Italy, every year. And they bring together small producers of food, all working in these small sustainable food systems. And the principles of the slow food movement is that everybody should have access to good, clean and fair food. Clean in terms of not keeping the soil and the water clean. And fair food is, of course, obvious. And they say that through our food choices, we can collectively influence how food is cultivated, produced and distributed. So again, very, very relevant to our education practice, I think. Next one. What are the implications for hospitality education? Well, I think, as we see, if we want to change the food system, this calls for collective intelligence and positive practice. The challenge needs bold hospitality professionals who can deliver smart solutions together. I think we have an enormous potential in our students to deliver smart solutions. It's also about technology. It's also about innovation. In fact, it's all about innovation. And I believe that learning can be fostered by a global and local community of students, lecturers, and professionals, such as the ICE community. And I think that students should get academic and experiential activities in food so that they are able to improve the food system. And on the left, you see an example of mind maps that students are making. And mind maps is an excellent tool to just get a grasp on the complexity of the food system and also to think about, okay, where can I contribute as a student? What topics in the food system are interesting for me? Okay, next. Then I thought, oh, okay, I want to do this research to allow formation of a community of practice for food educators, because I think we can work together and we can learn together. We can then develop expertise, we can set learning goals and support hospitality students towards adopting productive roles in sustainable food systems. Because one of the things, I don't know about your curricula, but we don't have a particular learning outcome or a learning goal, which is concerned with the food systems as such. So that could be something that could be changed in our curricula, perhaps. Next one, please. So the research aim and the methods, as I said, to identify curriculum elements which address and enable sustainable food systems. The main topic I identified as the sustainable food system, and we selected 7 subtopics just to keep it simple. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be very complex. And we just did a very simple Qualtrics survey, which we sent around through the ICE administration. And I did the survey design and the data analysis with a colleague. Next one. So the research questions were these: which topics are currently offered? To what degree are the topics developed in graduation projects? What relevance do curriculum designers perceive with regard to these topics? Do you find them relevant? And what interest is there to develop expertise together? Next one. So I got survey response out of 29 member institutes, 13 supplied their email addresses. And out of those 24 email contacts I got, 15 completed the questionnaire. So I was quite pleased with the results. It's a little bit over 60%. And it's just the first time that we do a thing like this. So I thank you for participating in this. 9 responses from Asia and 5 from Europe and 1 unknown. Okay, next. So again, 5 from Europe, 9 from Asia. That's the first thing we know. No. Next one. So the findings were that these were the most popular topics that they were taught in the core curriculum. Food waste is number 1, food security, then sustainable food systems, and then in the middle we got global food supply chain, true cost accounting, which is all about accounting the externalities cost, the cost of the externalities of the food production. Then fair trade, and then transparency and traceability in the food supply chain. And the topic taught least often was sustainable agriculture. So farming is a little bit outside of our scope, as it seems. Next one. The topics for graduation projects were, again, similar to the topics taught in the core curriculum. Topics are part of the graduation projects, say 9 institutes. The graduation projects regularly deal with a sustainable food system, so 8 institutes agree with this. And the institute regularly acquires projects on this topic, or 6 of the out of 15. Okay, I think it's very interesting that all of you, all of us say that, or all of the respondents say that the topic sustainable food system is a relevant topic for hospitality students. So that's the first quick win. It's a relevant topic for applied research. It should be taught in the core curriculum, say 11 of the respondents. Our institute employs researchers to do research about this. 10 of you said this. Our institute trains staff. Of course, the questions are geared so that it becomes more and more active and specific. And the topic is a key part of the institute's profile. 5 respondents say this. Next one. The ICE institutes, everybody agrees that the ICE institutes should develop expertise about the main topic and some of the subtopics. So basically the topic is recognized as relevant. Then the more active one, should we develop expertise on all of these topics? 9 institutes say this. And that we should collaborate is again a high number. Things we should should collaborate on developing expertise on these topics. Next one. And the respondents mentioned other topics, and of course these are, as you can see, very small and very big topics, smaller and bigger topics. For example, capitalism or colonization are big topics which are, of course, at the root of the injustices in the food system. So I think that would be a very, very interesting thing to do with hospitality students. It's about unsustainable economies. It's about food policies, and so again, yes, it's a matter of holistic thinking. We used to do the smaller things like how do we reduce the food waste in a particular restaurant, at the buffet in the particular restaurant. Very small, very operational, but you see from these topics that we should also be talking about the bigger, holistic, systemic topics. So I'm very happy to see these topics. Because I always say also that we used to do only, for example, food and wine pairing or something like that, or in gastronomy. So it was all about delicious food, about nice food. And now it's about, okay, where does our food come from? What choices do we make? Why do we make these choices? How do we improve the system? Next one. So I would like to hear your views on these interpretations of the research. And here's the moment where we have some interaction. So I hope that works technically. I hope I can see the chat perhaps, but I mostly like to hear people talking. Can anybody facilitate the interaction here a little bit? So my first question. Yeah, so my first question to the audience, to the members, to the people in the room. Is it sustainable? My statement is that sustainable farming is not relevant for hospitality institutes because this is out of reach of the hospitality industry. Who would like to share their view on this?
Thank you, Bastien. I'll open it up to the room. So have we got any remarks in relation to Bastien's first question? If we can read that, it says sustainable agriculture is not relevant for hospitality institutes because it's out of reach of the hospitality industry.
No, it's not out of reach, is it? I mean, it depends who buys and who you buy from. So no, not out of reach. It's a question of focus, isn't it?
Supply chain.
Yeah, it's how you built it into your supply chain.
Did you hear that, Bastien? So Manuel is saying that it's not out of reach because it's how you build it into your supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and should we also be teaching students about, for example, organic farming methods or sustainable farming methods? So should they really go back to the soil and understand how food is grown?
I think Oswin would like to contribute.
Manuel said I do not agree because that industry or this, let's say, value creating system network is really a bunch of disconnects. And the disconnects are more important than the possible connect. In reality, I'm not saying it cannot be changed.
More important financially.
Not only financially, but it's also mindset. It's about behavior. It is about, there are many studies around that have been in that for the last 30 years. The point really here is to say, what do we want to have in a curriculum that has some effect on the future behavior of graduates as ambassadors of the message, for example. Okay? So there's a core problem, in my opinion, not with your paper, Bastien, but in general is the perception of these things. If you do not know what you eat, if you don't know anything, you eat everything. That is 90% of the system. Consumers don't know. So they have this aspiration to educate consumers is not possible in a direct way. We can only integrate them in a way to provide value to them by being a good boy. Okay? So I may refer to a paper I just published 3 weeks ago in a British Food Journal about behavioral economics experiments. So I think it's possible to achieve something, but the aspirations should not be that we are going to change the world. Okay, there may be small effects. I agree to that, but it will never, let's say, a consumer in a restaurant will tell a farmer what to grow. It's not possible for different reasons. Right? To understand where the food comes from and how it's processed, I think that's a very desirable goal. But do not be excited about it, because if people are in the supermarket and there are hundreds of studies about it, finally, what you see in the supermarket is the price. And people buy high price, and stated preferences do not have any meaning, which means if they declare I buy organic, it has no meaning at all. Again, 90% of the cases. So I'm doing that, particularly with my students since years. It's a matter of many, many different aspects. But I think the scope is a bit too wide. If it will have an impact on the agri-food system, definitely no for the next 5 to 10 years. If you can influence the big corporates like Nestle, yes, this is what we can do. That works. It's very interesting to see that the sector cannot be influenced, but an individual, Rabobank is a very good example, going from the industrial park back somehow into now financing what we may call micro-farming, in a global scale. So I think it's a bit ambitious, but the most important thing is that you have it in a curriculum, that students understand if you do not know anything, you eat everything. And this is what we are essentially doing.
That's nice. That's nice. I like the way you say that. Yeah.
Getting a step
Thank
forward
you.
from that would already be a great achievement. Okay? So if you have every year 100 graduates who understand, let's have a look at least what we're consuming, a huge achievement. And it should not be criticized.
Yes, I think so. Thank you very much. If you don't know anything, you eat anything, and that's, I think, a very important thing, especially for our hospitality professionals. Yes. Mm-hmm. Great. Can I go on to the next statement? Do I have time for the next statement? Yeah.
Yes,
reducing food waste should have priority, as the hospitality industry is a key actor in producing food waste. It's actually also one of the most powerful ways to reduce carbon footprint. Who would like to comment on this?
This is reducing food waste should have priority, as the hospitality industry is a key actor in producing food waste. Can I invite contributions in relation to this point?
Sorry, I hate that. As I mentioned, the paper, reducing food waste in restaurants, in hotel settings with buffets. It's possible to reduce them by nudging, changing the behavior just by nudging, experimental settings, up to 60%. But the starting points are more important. So who is aware of the fact that, for example, the biggest food wasters in terms of what has been researched are British pubs. 40% of the food served in British pubs is thrown away. Just think about that. Okay? So I think, again, a good starting point, as you mentioned before, like yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. I would like to address one or two more statements, especially the last two ones. Would it be possible, do you think teaching sustainable food systems requires a radically different didactic approach in our teaching, because the topic generates so many perspectives and dilemmas? It's not about, I found it's not about teaching to the test. You cannot make just one knowledge test and expect students to reproduce knowledge. It's about building knowledge together. Do you agree with that last statement, that we need to change our teaching approaches?
Yeah, I think that being, for example, in a kitchen to teach sustainability is the best way to do it. I mean, because this is concrete, because students will understand, and because at the end of the day they will remember. And I think, I mean, this is what we're doing in our Institute of Focus with part of our sustainability courses, and it's really interesting, and students are very into it from A to Z. We're showing many perspectives in the kitchen, and we're giving them clues, and this is concrete. This is something they're doing, so that will stick to their minds after. So I think it's really, really important to change our way of teaching sustainability and make it more for people.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you there. It's like a magnet for sustainability, isn't it, food? And you catch students' attention because it's so practical and so real, and everybody knows about it and practices good food. So it's a good magnet to teach sustainability and climate change. So it's thanks for
Question,
that.
there's one more contribution from Alison.
I was just going to say,
okay.
At Dubai College of Tourism, we teach this subject quite practically. So there are quite a lot of sustainable farms that we go to, and we present some really good fish supplies as well. And we find it really makes an impact if we take our students there and share physically, especially the Al Bahari farms as well. The experience.
And there is one more from Duncan.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say was just to agree, because it's a fascinating idea. The other argument, the other proposal would be that it gets incorporated into more generic wellness programs throughout an entire university or college. Because if you look at, for example, level 4 students or first year students coming into university, it's the first time a lot of young people have ever kind of engaged in the nature of how they kind of use food themselves, maybe coming from a family that's cooked for them for many years and so on and so forth. And there's also a great opportunity, I think, there for hospitality students to potentially take the lead there as well, to kind of demonstrate that point of well-being. So it's a kind of great learning opportunity with other students on other programs, whether it be STEM subjects or, regardless really.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an interdisciplinary opportunity as well, isn't it? As you said, to contribute to with STEM educations as well. Technology plays a role, absolutely, and yeah, climate science, etc. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Bastian. There's just a
Okay.
couple of minutes. So if you want to complete your presentation, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I think that's just the last slide. You take us to the next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, so I would be interested in sharing your ideas for the next steps towards a community of practice. I think we can do this at a low level or at an easy practical level, like, for example, setting up a collective library of sources or setting up regular Zoom meetings. I've seen those on different topics going around. Does anybody have any more practical ideas of how to set this up? Or perhaps Craig would like to say something about this?
Yeah, Bastian, this is great because we also this year launched the ICE Research Platform. And we invited institutions to nominate people to join the platform. So we've already got that sort of collection of researchers from our institutes. We've got the platform. We've got the platform where you can communicate and but also store resources. We've got that. That's in place. So what we can do, if you wish, if you see this as a way forward, is create a subsection of that specifically for this research, specifically related to food systems, as a subsection of that research platform. So all those resources are available for you to set up that community of practice, store your resources to integrate and discuss your next steps, for example. So it's all there for you.
That would be great. Yeah, and also to have some interaction between lecturers there, isn't there? There's moderated discussions or that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, because once you have the contact with the institutions, you know, what we find is, often you're talking to one person and you need that person then to connect with other people within inside the institution. So yeah, I know you deal with this element, but what about you talk to 2 or 3 other people that deal with the other elements and get them to join the practice as well, and then it grows and it grows and grows and get it. So
great.
Yeah, but by all means, to use the resources, it would be fantastic if you do that. So if that is an outcome of this research, we'd be delighted. Yeah.
Yes, that's very nice. So if we could set up a small group like this, then that would be an expertise group from across the world, from Asia and Europe. That would be very interesting, because it's also interesting to see if Asia and Europe, you know, address different issues from their perspectives, and it's also good for students to become aware of this. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much. And the next slide is just my final slide. Thank you for your active engagement, and let's start this journey together towards the community practice. Thanks very much, Craig, for hosting this.
Okay.
And thank you for.
That's great. Thank you, Bastian. And I'll just finish very quickly to highlight Brian's point in the chat. And Brian's saying that it's a great point about the merits of more holistic thinking about food. It's timely to introduce systems thinking to complement food and beverage operations and management. And he senses that systems and supply chains thinking can also strengthen linkages between the hospitality and tourism disciplines, and also culinary as an art science. And he finishes off by saying what a great use of the ICE research done. So I think that's a nice way to finish. So on behalf of everyone at the IPOE, Bastian, thank you for presenting your research today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We're going to move on to our second research presentation now. I'll spend 2 minutes to set the presentation up, then I'll introduce the speaker. So thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I'd like to introduce the second of our presentations today. I'd like to introduce Dr. Christopher Dutt, Senior Lecturer at Al-Bayan. Sorry, Chris, I know you're welcome. We're together. Al-Bayan International University College in Qatar. Chris is also the recipient of the 2020 Emerald and EFMD Outstanding Doctoral Research Award in the Tourism and Hospitality Management category. And Chris is a senior lecturer in tourism and hospitality management. So Chris, thank you for being here
Thank you
today.
so much.
Over to you.
Thank you everyone for bearing with us till now, so thank you so much. I'd like to introduce our research committee. So Dr. Ali Abdullah is the research lead. There's myself and Dr. Ruth, who's come from Saxion University in the Netherlands. Just a quick overview. So, Dr. Ali Abdullah is the project lead, so he's the one who initially formulated the idea for our research. So he's with Al International University College, previously called Stenden, until we previously changed. There's myself. I'm also now at Al International University College, although when the grant was awarded and the data was collected while I was working at the Emirates Academy of Hospitality Management in Dubai. And Ruth is from Saxion University in the Netherlands. So this was a tri-party research grant that was awarded. We were all looking at a similar focus. We were looking at field trips and how they can operate in an online system, which I'll introduce shortly. And so it was a combination of the three of us putting it in from 3 different institutions across 3 different countries, all members of the ICE. So hopefully we'll give some meaningful impact and meaningful insights to the rest of our members. Eventually. Yeah, thank you. So the problem we had, of course, as we are all very well aware, and as was mentioned yesterday by our colleagues in IGRAD and Healy, COVID, of course, had a significant effect on how we do our teaching styles. Overnight, we all had to then suddenly shift to online learning. And for a lot of us, we like to use some mixture of practical application, either it's teaching in kitchens or it is field trips to supplement what we're doing in the classroom, make it more live and realistic. Of course, that all stops when we go online. And even now, in some places, there are restrictions with getting, okay, as students, we can be back face-to-face in a classroom, but we can't take them out of the classroom and take them to a hotel. We can't fly off somewhere for a little experience internationally. So what we were wanting to know was, okay, what's the solution been? The solution has been migrating this into a virtual alternative, a virtual field trip. What's the impact of that from the student's perspective? What are they saying that they like, that they dislike? And that was mainly our focus, particularly on the quality of the students' learning. Because that's what we're all here for. That's what the message we kept hearing yesterday. We're here to make sure the students get a positive and useful long-term experience. If this is not helping, we need to find some other way to do that. So just a part of continuing that notion, we've got a couple of images here of what certainly my colleague Dr. Ali used to do, where he used to take his students around the world for what I believe was called the Grand Tour, take them there to, as part of their learning, they'll get to travel to different tourism sites and see different experiences. Of course, it all worked very nicely. You get to go to fun places. Thank you. See some wonderful sites, meet industry players, you make good contacts with your colleagues, with your professors, with industry. And then suddenly we're jumping to an online system. I have edited the image just to preserve confidentiality and people's names. This tour that they did to Brazil was actually, students gave very positive feedback. Another one they did somewhere else, less, I'm not going to say where in case they're listening in, was less positive. The information I received afterwards for the first tour, there was an animated guest lecturer, they were talking, they were moving around, they were taking people on a virtual experience. And for this one, it was a case of, we have lace. This one was built in 200 and there's no interest in that. Students aren't going to sit there for 3 hours and listen to someone sit back in a chair on their lounger and talk through the experience. That's got no interest for students. So we wanted to dig a little bit deeper to actually understand what is it that they felt from the experiences they went through, and assuming there is going to be a move forward, and this either by force or by choice, we're going to continue virtual field trips. What do we need to bear in mind for the future? This was our main outcome, again, focus on students' experiences. what we've done is we conducted a series of qualitative studies, mostly focus groups and an interview, due to a limited student availability, across the 3 campuses. So in Dubai, I held 3 focus groups. In Qatar, there were 3 focus groups, and in the Netherlands, we managed to get 1 focus group and 1 interview. We all had a standardized set of questions, and our main focus was on exploring what did students felt from transitioning from face-to-face to online, what was their biggest challenges and issues, and then specifically, what do they see as a value of field trips, and then what are their thoughts on virtual field trips. Now, we split the groups. We had one group that had only ever done physical field trips. We had one group that's only ever done virtual field trips because they joined during COVID. And we had one group who had experienced both. So we were able to look at vague comparisons between the 3 groups and see what themes occurred that were similar or different across the different student experiences. So we generally found 4 overarching themes that occurred. What was interesting was it didn't really seem to matter. I know this is not a quantitative study, so we can't extrapolate the results too widely. We can't generalize too widely. But it didn't seem to matter what students' experience had been, whether they had only physical or virtual or mixture. Their concerns and their thoughts were very similar, which I think is a positive notion. It means that any changes we adopt will have far-reaching impacts. We're not going to be talking just for one group. The first thing that came through from all the groups was generally they were quite flexible. They didn't mind too much as long as they felt assured their education was guaranteed. Their educational quality was ensured to be high quality still. And I think that's similar to one of the comments we got yesterday from iGrant in terms of what some of the concerns they had from students in terms of continuing their education. The educational quality was critical. There were some differences that occurred. Some students loved the online atmosphere. Lying in their bed and connecting to a call was the best thing that could ever have happened. Others loathed it with a passion. And I think with the first one, as soon as the doors were unlocked, they ran back into the school. That didn't, again, seem to affect what students felt of their virtual or physical field trips. Some would prefer virtual, some would prefer physical, but the kind of comments they were giving about the quality of them remained the same. The bigger area was the organization, how the field trip was organized. And again, this was from a physical perspective, there were similar comments to the virtual, mainly around making sure that the field trip clearly supports the course outcomes. Some students were saying that they felt like they were doing a field trip for the sake of doing a field trip. They didn't understand how it clearly connected to the outcomes of the course. Now, I'm sure there would be. It would never have run if there hadn't been a connection, but the students weren't aware of what that was. So the suggestion coming out of that is either there's a much clearer connection. This is the outcome of the course. This is how the field trip would resolve that outcome. Additionally, it was possibly in the field trip itself, you assign various activities, assignments, or some outcome that the student must be able to achieve upon completion of the field trip that again clearly connects to the course overall outcome. The other issue that arose there, mostly on the virtual side, was, and this was an interesting one, because virtual field trips are now much more accessible, one of the biggest advantages is we can do a field trip of, I've done one on, oh, my mind's gone blank, in the UK for Stonehenge. And then 5 minutes later, we do a virtual field trip of the site in Dubai. 10 minutes later, we do a field trip on the Great Wall. So we can do all that within the space of a 3-4 hour class immediately. No travel, no cost, and you get to see these comparisons immediately. And you can do that in all classes. And that almost actually had a detrimental effect. So the students liked the opportunity to bounce around and see different places and see the comparisons, but sometimes they felt it was overdone. And some of us, as lecturers, we wanted to flood the students with too many site visits because suddenly the opportunity was there. but that became too overburdening for them. So while it's very good that there is this opportunity to experience different places, it comes back to the organization. It needs to be very clearly, very carefully structured into the wider curriculum and not overburdening the students too much. That then also connects to things like the use of tour guides. There's a bit of a mix in terms of if students want to explore a site themselves or if they think it should be teacher-led or guide-led. There wasn't really a consensus of that, but that can be something that can be done on a case-by-case basis. And one of the other big advantages that particularly came up in the case of virtual, and this is something that our colleagues from Healy mentioned yesterday, was the ability to replay. So one thing that the students loved was with a virtual field trip, they could go back and repeat it several times because it didn't disappear. It was always there. And then they could replay certain parts of the field trip that maybe they missed for whatever reason. Maybe they were asleep, who knows? But they felt that they could actually improve their learning. So if they thought, oh, there was a really good point that came up when we were exploring Athens, I don't remember what it was, they could jump back quite quickly and collect that again. One thing I've noticed as a bit of a sidestep to this, with our transition quickly over to online learning, students seem to have forgotten or don't know how to take notes. Especially with some of them, they've maybe only got 1 or 2 devices at home that they can use to connect to classes. They don't know how to take notes anymore. So sometimes, and even we see it now in the classroom, they're not sure what to do. So they struggle to maybe watch a class, pay attention to the chat, and jot down notes, and therefore they don't get the learning they can take away from them. And the flexibility through being able to rewatch, replay recordings was very helpful for them because they were then able to capture that in more depth. So what often they would do is they would do the tour or the class once, just pay attention and see what was going on, live the experience. Second time, they would watch it to take the notes. Another big area that occurred very much down the virtual field trips was the quality of the system. I think that's some of the fun we're having today. If the system is of good quality, the experience is generally very positive. Now that can be in terms of internet connectivity, that can be power of the computer, but it can also be if we start moving towards our sort of virtual and augmented reality, whether it's just a plain screen or if we're using some kind of virtual reality headset. That dramatically improves the experience. And a couple of the students mentioned that if they had gone through some of these tours, they may have been a bit dull standing on this traditional screen, but with a more immersive technology, it would have been a more thrilling experience. The final thing that came up, which I think is, again, largely focused as a negative for the virtual, but a great area for us to consider exploring, was the lack of socialization and networking. One of the biggest advantages students said of why they loved field trips wasn't necessarily the field trip itself. It was the opportunity to socialize with their colleagues, socialize with their teacher, and network with industry. And by having a Zoom call and having a walkthrough, they lost that whole opportunity. And that is again where I think Healy's discussion, I'm going to keep plugging Healy because they kept plugging me yesterday, so I need to make the connection there. Where Healy's discussion yesterday about moving forward in the future of online learning and blended learning becomes so critical. It's that social networking side, which was vital, and the students really felt that was lost. And the same with the iGrad results. There were some iGrad results saying that, I think again it was on socialization had dropped. They felt like they couldn't connect with their peers as effectively or locals in the country they were studying. And that was again what we were seeing there. That was the biggest gap that they were finding. Last one, okay, thank you. So we've got this image. It may not be very clear here. I believe the slides will be uploaded to the website a little later with more details, so hopefully it'll be clearer there. We've just basically given a breakdown of what were the key outcomes of the research that we're finding so far, and then we're open to if anyone's had any other thoughts or your own experiences. Maybe we can re-analyze the data and see if we've missed something there. From a virtual side, the biggest things from a system quality perspective was that it was immersive, it had to be realistic, and of course the IT quality, the system of their the quality of their IT systems. From a physical field trip, it was more the fact that they wanted to feel involved. Now, usually physical did that by its natural state anyway, but that's a good thing to remember, is that this idea of being involved was very important for the students. The social networking side, again, was a vital component, and that's one thing that we will need to consider moving forward. So some of the suggestions we had from students was, okay, great, do our virtual field trip, but then is there an option afterwards to have a separate call, like breakout rooms or separate discussions with industry partners, particularly if they were involved in the field trip? So what a lot of these sort of travel markets do at the moment, they've got their main stream, their main presentations, and even the recent APAC CRE in Singapore had the same thing. You had your main stream, but then you also had several breakout rooms that you could then connect and interact with each other. And that's a step forward we could look at. I think it's even the same is true now. In this room, we can all network quite effectively, but our colleagues connecting from overseas have sort of lost that ability to interact more with us on a more casual basis. And that is where a lot of the value comes from with all this. Another suggestion the students gave was, if of course it's possible, we get an industry player into the classroom physically, and then they do the virtual tour if they're not allowed at a physical site, for example. So at least then they still get that networking opportunity. They still get to meet industry. In terms of the organization, the biggest advantages for the virtual field trip was the fact that it was virtually free. Very few actually charge, or if they do charge, it's minimal. The flexibility to replay and attend from wherever they want, and the ability to access sites all over the world, sites that may normally be off-bound because they're culturally sensitive or physically sensitive, they're now open to us. However, application and relevance, how does it actually relate to my career at the end of the day? How does it relate to my course? Interest is a big one. You drift off very quickly if you're staring at a screen for 10 minutes. Guides is a hit and miss. Some are very good, others are, much to be desired. And what we've got is a sort of larger aesthetics, the general scene around what they go through, the experiences that they have. From the physical side, they like the flexibility of being able to explore the site a little bit more themselves. There was a perception of greater trust at the site because they could actually see it themselves. They believed what they were seeing was more truthful, whereas online, it was 50-50. Some would say, no, it's more trustworthy because I can see the back of house more, I can see the real stuff. And others said, but how do I know that's not just been faked and it's not been superimposed on something else? So there was no consensus on that from a virtual perspective. Again, the issue to work on for also the physical was the application and relevance. Again, how does it connect to post-graduation careers, and how does it connect to their course itself? And throughout all of this, the one theme that was constant for everyone was the quality of the education. As long as students felt that, okay, the tour may not be great, but they learned something from it, and there was an outcome that will help them in their studies and will help them post-graduation, they were generally happy. So I think the key takeaways from this is the virtual field trips, if we can do physical are always preferred here, if we can promote this application side. Virtually, there is great opportunity there. We shouldn't just abandon virtually. There is fantastic opportunities there. If, again, we can focus on the application and relevance, and we can find a way to get that networking opportunity to come in. If we can make that, then virtual field trips become a very feasible and viable alternative that we can use on a much more regular basis and supplement that with the physical as well. I hope I haven't bored everyone. So that was basically the outcomes we got from our research. We are going through it now to finalize the full paper and everything, but we are open to comments, thoughts, and questions. So if we need to go back and have another look at the findings you've got to see if you guys have noticed anything, maybe it's something you've seen in the classes or you've heard from the students, we can try and have another look through and maybe just double check we haven't missed anything. And then we can try and bring that through in the full manuscript afterwards. So from all of us, thank you very much, and thank you for the research grant itself. So thank you all so much. Thank you.
We do have a few minutes. Have we got some comments? Lots of comments.
Thank you, Dr. Love, for this very interesting and engaging presentation. The results are very interesting, and I think, you know, the virtual field trips, this is a recent phenomenon, right? A relatively recent phenomenon. I understand the inductive nature of the research, and you have done some focus groups. Are you trying to link this model to some of the existing behavioral theories, or theoretical frameworks, and what would be the next step? Because I think this is very, very interesting research, and I think you should take it further.
We are taking it further. At the moment, we've generally gone down the lines of some of the technology angles. Because of the virtual angle, we wanted to see how that connects, because I'm also publishing some stuff now with some colleagues on augmented and virtual reality, and we've got incredibly similar results in terms of the immersiveness of the technology and the relevance of the technology in a different setting, but the results are very, very similar in terms of the overall outcome. So at the moment, we're largely going down the technology side and education side, the quality of students' education and perceptions of education. We haven't addressed consumer behavior yet, but maybe that's a future one that we'll look at. Thank you.
Thanks very much. It was really interesting. Having done it myself with students actually at an undergrad and postgrad level, I've found that there's some real great opportunity there, and some distinct challenges if you identified. It's great to see actually, because some of the challenges I identified anecdotally were the similar ones that come out of your research. Just, I guess that one point that I was thinking about, and I'd love you comment on it, and there's one question in there as well, I guess. How did you organise a kind of full itinerary for the students in terms of what would normally be seen for a student on a physical field trip? So you can see the days broken down of when they need to meet and so on and so forth, when they have breaks and that type of thing. Or was it more of a kind of, there were just micro components within there? Because I think there's great opportunities for both.
Correct. No, you're entirely right. And what that was also one of the findings that came out was the mixture. For some field trips that students had experienced, there was a very clear, very structured itinerary. And they seem to like that. Okay, they like the free time as well to go and do whatever they want to do. We're not going to question that. But they like the clear structure. Other field trips they participated in, like I said, were more haphazard. And the students then got the distinct impression that it was a field trip for the sake of a field trip. And that was not appreciated, especially, and again, the main reason for that was they didn't understand how it connected. So why am I here? What am I getting from this? Why does it benefit me? So I think the itinerary is a key component there. Maybe a degree of flexibility gives students a degree of choice. But again, if the itinerary and everything clearly connects to what the students will learn and how it will help them in the long term, then that would be ideal.
I think it's a really good point, because I think the classic challenge that we've always had with tourism field trips in some respects is that how do the students perceive them as not just being a field trip, but actually being field work? So when they're undertaking actual field work on the trip itself, because obviously it's a bit more straightforward for other subject areas like geology and so on and so forth at the university to go on field trips and go and to actually undertake field work, where of course there's loads of opportunity in tourism, hospitality and events to do a similar kind of thing. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. The other thing that we've tried on physical field trips, but we haven't done on virtual ones, is a form of co-creation, and I guess project-based learning in the sense that the students go out there and find the contacts and the discussion. So they find the industry speakers. And they could, technically, I guess you could do that virtually as well. So the students go out there, find the industry speakers, organise it all, and that kind of links in networking, but it also links in that industry context as well, which you're quite right, they really value.
I think there's two good points. So one was on the sort of the experience the students go through in the tour. So I've done a couple where, as part of their assessment, the students have to develop a sort of a cultural checklist on monitoring a site and recording what could be potential issues, and then they've got at least an outcome that they've got to achieve, which clearly connects to assignment, clearly connects to a learning outcome, and then a graduate profile statement, a graduate outcome. So that tends to at least have a clear connection for them. And the other point you made, I think, is an excellent solution on the co-creation idea, because that's a great way of getting industry involved, the students see the relevance, and then the students are then more interested because they were involved in the creation of it. So that could be a perfect solution to really get that networking side started very early on. Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to say feedback from some of our students. It makes field trips much more accessible to our mature students who've got family commitments and different things like that, and they prefer the virtual.
Yes.
You know, they're not always able to take time off work or get childcare. So I think that's a big plus.
Yeah,
virtual as well.
I think what will be interesting is moving this research forward is then taking a quantitative approach so we can get a larger sample size and more generalizable findings. Because then I think those differences will be more apparent where different demographic traits, such as slightly older, or those with family or health conditions or whatever, would then, I suspect, be much more down the line of virtual field. I agree, yeah.
Thank you. We'd love to take part.
Excellent, thank you. We look forward to that.
No, you go for it.
Yeah, great research and very interesting research. Obviously, one of the first things to say is the platform that's available. I mentioned that's available to Bastian, of course, it's available to you. So if you wanted to create a sub group of that for scholastic activities specifically related to internships, then that's available to you.
Thank you.
You can create your group there. You can store your resources. You can spread from there. Second thing is, I'm not quite sure how to make it, so I just kind of proceed with the point, and then you'll see where I'm going with this. But I used to, years and years ago at the University of Derby, I used to do a module called Tourism in Developing Countries. And I taught it for about 3 years in a row, totally unsuccessfully, because they just didn't get it. They just didn't get the problems of developing tourism in these situations. And then we ran a field trip to the Gambia in Banjul, and we took students from this area, for instance, from Derby to Banjul. Probably about at that stage, 2/3, 3/4 of them had not actually been abroad. I think only one had been to a developing country. We arrived in Banjul, and we got off the plane, and we went from airside, where it was all pristine and quiet, and we went through the gates into the ground side, and it was chaos. It was the third world, just in the entry lounge, and the students should like this, and had such a culture shock, and just learned in that moment what it was like. You know, they learned more in that 1 second just walking through the challenges, and it's. So my point is that how do you recreate that immersion, and can you recreate that immersion? Because, and you can't. It's like you mentioned also about learning outcomes. You could never almost frame that as a learning outcome, because you're making assumptions about your students and assumptions how they'll react. So it's very difficult even to frame it as a learning outcome. But in terms of learning outcome, it's the greatest learning outcome I've ever had. Yeah. Because, you know, everybody got it, everyone sort of responded to that. So I don't know, the point is that there's certain elements within field trips that are so important, that are so difficult to even conceptualize and include. So it's just, I'm just planting it there. Just, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had the theme come through of the aesthetics, which was exactly dealing with that, is that you can see it in an image, walk around seeing these old buildings, but it's a different feeling when you're actually there.
Yeah.
And yeah, virtual can simulate it to a certain degree. I remember there's been a few videos that we've had presented to students that have shocked them, but it's a different shock because you're sitting in your comfortable, safe environment. Yeah. You can get up and you can leave, so you're protected there. But I think it struggles to recreate the environment entirely. And this is where potentially it's good to get a merger of the two. We can't replace physical with virtual, yeah. But what virtual can do is provide us a little bit more choice. So we can do maybe several field trips in a year. Mm-hmm. And one of the suggestions was as well, you can supplement a field trip. So, okay, we're going to Gambia, let's say, let's do a virtual field trip of that first, so we can get initial overviews, and then you go and do the physical one. Mm. And then there's a bit of a comparison there. So they get a bit warmed up to it, or maybe they form some preconceptions. They get there and they confirm or reject those conceptions. Yeah. So I don't think virtual is in any position to replace entirely physical. What it does is enhance and supplement.
Can I just say, in the future though, virtual reality will really help with this. So I've done some virtual reality testing for people
particularly my son who does a lot of that work. And they're able to take you. They took me to a classroom in Syria. It was something that they were doing for Oxfam to get people to donate. And that virtual reality took me to a classroom in Syria.
Okay.
And I met in that classroom a young girl. Didn't see her, but I could almost physically feel her at my side. And she said, "Take my hand." And you almost felt as if you were holding somebody's hand. And she walked me home to her house. And I went into her house and she was saying things like, "Can you smell the bakery on the way home?" She says, "I always walk this way because I'm always hungry. I can never afford the bread in the bakery, but I love the smell." And she took me into her home and introduced me to her brothers. So there is an opportunity in the future. And that was a real immersive experience. And charities are starting to do this an awful lot, because I would have donated loads of money at that point if it had been done. And it really tugs on your emotions and gives you a real experience. So in the future, there will be opportunities.
There's an interesting paper that will be coming out soon.
Depends on the director of the film. Yeah.
There's an interesting paper coming out soon that's looking at the virtual reality and the more tactile sensations around it, so we can get auditory and taste and touch as well.
Yeah.
But they're looking at it from the perspective of the increased work it has on you, the mental strain. So it will be a great opportunity. What we then need to think about is how tiring will it make the student, because it's not it's not a natural movement that you've got to do. You've got to do a little bit more work because you can't move your hands in much the same way. So it'll be a great opportunity, and it will really then help to simulate this kind of environment. Then what will then be the knock-on effect in terms of how long can they last? Because it is a more physically straining and mentally tiring activity for now, but hopefully in time, as you say, it'll get much more efficient.
That's it. I think we'll close the session there.
Yeah, and unless we've got any contributions.
There's nothing in the chat. There are some comments, but we have a really good view of the room in the chat. Okay, great. Well, I'll take this moment just to say thank you to both our speakers. So I'd like to thank once again Bastian Benasco for her presentation. Bastian, we do have a gift, a token of appreciation, which we'll send that out to you, unfortunately, as you couldn't be here today. So once again, thank you to Bastian. Secondly, thank you to Chris for his presentation. And you are here in person, so we can offer a token of our appreciation for your talk today.
Thank you so much.
So thank you much. Thank you so much.